Mr. Evelyn? Here. Mr. Tiller?
Here.
Ms. Page? Here. Mr. Steers?
Here.
And Mr. Lockwood?
Here.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for being here. First item on the agenda tonight is New Kent County Broadband Expansion Project update from Cox Communications. I believe Ms. Rice, are you doing that today? I'm sorry. Can't remember the mic. And Barrett Stork, correct? Thank you.
Well, I'm going to put this so you can hear me. I know that well, good morning. As Chairman Tiller mentioned, my name is Erin Rice. I'm here on behalf of Cox Communications to provide a broadband expansion update. It's good to see all of you again. I know many of you were at our town hall a couple days ago, but I hope that you are still so excited about this project as we were that evening. Just as a way of background, I have been the project liaison for this project since I came on board in May of 2022 and have been here, and I'm very excited to share some updates about the work that has gone on since we executed the contract in August of 2022. Oops. This morning, I just want to give you a brief overview of the project deliverables. So when I say broadband expansion project, what does that mean? Go over a little bit about what fiber to the home infrastructure looks like and how we design and build that network, and then the progress that we have made since we executed that contract in August. Just by the numbers, as you know, this project is bringing broadband fiber to every resident here in New Kent County. In total, that is more than 566 fiber miles across the county. In total, that's over 11,000 residents, homes and businesses will get that access to the fiber network, of which about 3,000 of those are currently unserved. By 2026, we will have universal broadband fiber coverage in the county. And the big point that I want to make that I've been getting asked a lot of questions about is the line extensions. And the line extensions will be deployed at no additional cost to the resident. That is a part of the contract that we signed with you. And so I want to make sure that people know that that is a zero cost. So if you have anyone ask any questions, that it is zero. Yes, ma'am.
Is that zero cost during the initial installation, I guess, or if they decide the next year or a month or two after it's been up and live that they want to do that? Is it still zero cost?
It is zero cost for the terms of this contract. So if we are in their neighborhood or your neighborhood within the next, say, 18 months, that extension will be granted at no additional cost. If they come back in 5 years and say, hey, I do want that extension, there will be some cost sharing that we have. That part of that is in our contract, the specific language I can share with you after today, but there is a cost sharing measure in place for those types of things. So if the homeowners change from year to year, person A wanted it, person B doesn't, those types of things.
So since there's zero cost, they should take it down whether they want it or not.
Your words, not mine.
Yeah,
yes, we would love for them to take advantage of it now.
Yeah, but what if somebody moves in the neighborhood 3 years from now and builds a new home?
Once again, those new homes, that's a part of the contract, the cost sharing mechanism we'll look at.
Okay.
I just wanted to put this slide on the screen because I have gotten a lot of questions since Thursday, and I'm sure you guys have as well, about what I mean when we say unserved residents here in the county. That is, each one of those little red dots is a unserved locations that we have collaboratively identified. So each one of those dots is 3,053 homes. We had spoken before, where are those people? And that is a depiction of where those are. This is the slide that was shared and has been reshared multiple times. And I do want to provide a little bit of context to what is on this slide so you can help educate the residents here on what they're looking at. This is the estimated serviceability of the initial 12 clusters in the county And the timelines that you see are the largest amount of time that someone will get that service. So if you're looking at the two priority areas are the Barnesville area and the northwest corner. Those two areas were identified because the county underwent a study of the broadband availability here, and from that study, the two highest need areas were the northwest corner and Barnesville. Those are the largest areas, so you're looking at 500 or plus homes in those areas. Those will be broken down into individual service groups, and the service groups will come online. So neighborhoods by neighborhoods will be online. We have a general range, but we wanted to make sure that people know that by that date they should expect service in their area. Those are the 12 initial clusters, which account for about 1,700 to 1,800 of those initial 3,000 homes. We have identified a timeline for those, and those are reflected on the screen. If you do not see your address or where you live in the county, but you know you're unserved, I can guarantee you're going to get service. Please don't be concerned of that. Your address just falls within one of the fill-in clusters, and that is the remaining 1,300 homes, and we will have a timeline of deliverability for those homes in the second quarter of 2023. And so this map in July timeframe will have 22 different colored blocks with 22 different timelines, and we can hopefully by that point we will also be able to break it down by neighborhood and give you a definitive time frame of when those homes will come online. Any questions? Okay. I wanted to go over a little bit about what I mean when I say building the fiber to the home network. If you can think of it as like building a home yourself, there is a lot of work that goes into designing that home, where the kitchen is, how many bathrooms do you want, how many bedrooms do you want one story, do you want 2 stories? So there's a lot of work that goes into designing that plan. And from that plan, we acquire our materials, we acquire timelines, we acquire all of that stuff based on how that is designed. And so once we heard from you and the agreement was agreed upon that this is a fiber to the home for the entire county, we started designing that network. We started designing that home and identifying those locations and those equipments that were required. So that's the first set. The network design and the field surveys, and I'll go through each one of these kind of phases in a little bit more detail, but just as a broad perspective, you have the network design phase, then you get into the permitting phase, which is the permits to VDOT, the permits to pole attachment requests to the Dominion Virginia Power, that also is easements or anything that we would need before we go on to a landowner's home. And then lastly is the construction phase and where we test the network. So the construction phase is where towards the end, but there's so much work that goes into it before we get to that point. So within the network design, what we have been doing since the summertime is we did a lot of work internally on the design and developing that with our engineers and our engineering team. And then at the beginning of November 2022, we started those field surveys, once again, in those areas identified in the contract as to come first. We started in the Barnesville area, and then we moved over to Talliesville. I will say earlier I articulated that we had the 2 service areas of both Barnesville and the northwest corner as the priority, but from a design and a network perspective, we have to build through Talliesville to get to the northwest corner. So that's why Talliesville site surveys have been ongoing. We are at the point now in which we have completed the field survey work in Talliesville and submitted the plans for final design. We have also, for 3 out of the 4 service groups in Barnesville, we have done that as well, and they're working on that final design. I will say that we have a dedicated team that is working on this. As you'll see in the one picture, the individual has a notepad and he is taking notes of what he's seeing in the field. So from the standpoint of measure twice, cut once, our teams are really making all of those notes. They're measuring poles. They're measuring the distance between the poles so we can properly acquire the fiber necessary and all the other equipment that goes into this deployment. They are taking pictures, and so we have weekly calls with the planners that are in the field, the survey techs, the contractors that we have there. They are taking notes, and we have those calls weekly in which we are mitigating any challenges that we're hearing in the field in terms of a design perspective. Okay, we need to move this from there. Rodney has been getting some emails from me in terms of, do we need to have this address a part of the deployment plan? For example, we identified an area from the Department of Forestry, which is a fire tower. The address was in our system. We needed to confirm whether that fire tower needed broadband service or not. But we have committed to providing every location here in New Kent County service, and we will not be taking one off the list unless we have confirmed it, triple confirmed it, that it needs to be taken off. And we will, like I said, we will be moving to the northwest corner to be doing those field surveys the beginning of February. The next phase of the project is the permitting, and we have started the permitting. That is important because our contract articulates that we have our deliverables by the time that permitting begins. So for the unserved location, the contract outlines that 24 to 28 months from the time permitting begins. Permitting began in December of 2022. And those first set of VDOT permits have been approved. We have also submitted underground permits that are still pending with the Department of Transportation. We have had several calls and conversations with VDOT because they know we're going to have a lot of permitting requests throughout the entirety of this project, as well as they have a major expansion project that is going on currently on 64, and I think there's also other construction work on the roads here in New Kent. And so we have had those conversations just to give them the heads up this stuff is coming. The same with Dominion Virginia Power. We have alerted them that we're going to have a lot of pole attachment requests coming in. Dominion, we work with them very, very well, very closely. We have done lots of projects with them and have set up a system on how those will be provided. And so they're ready to get those. And then lastly, I will be remiss if I didn't talk about the number of easements that are going to be associated with this project. We are hearing that it could be over 4,000 private easements throughout the duration of this project. So we need your help in educating the residents. You can send them my way, and I'm happy to talk to them, but we hope that they are a willing partner and allow some of these easements to go quickly, and we will be working. The one great thing about Cox is we are a national company, and so that allows us to hear best practices across the spectrum. And so we have put together an easement team, if you will, within our organization, and we are identifying how best to facilitate this because we do not want these easements and the number of easements to slow down this project. And you will... I think we went too far. Hold on. How do I go back? Okay. Yeah, okay. I think I'm the next here. So I will just say the site survey, we did conduct a site visit with leadership from New Kent County in December of last year, and this provided an opportunity for members of the board and staff to see what I mean when I say field survey work. They had an opportunity to talk with our local construction leadership in the field, not only from our senior directors, our managers, but the actual boots on the ground individuals that are making this project happen. We welcome the opportunity to do more of those. I know Vice Chairman Evelyn was with us, but each one of you on the board, it's an open invitation. Just work with Rodney and myself, and we can make that happen for you to see everything that we saw. hopefully Vice Chair Evelyn can tell you it was a good experience for him to see when I'm talking about this stuff, he knows what I'm talking about a little bit more. And so that's why you'll see in this presentation, there are so many pictures because I am a visual person, as many of you may be as well. But this is the most exciting slide, I think, of the entire presentation, and that is construction has started. We started on that construction of the fiber backbone or the fiber reinforcement in mid-January 2023, and we have, once again, priority there in Barmsville. We have so far, as of last week, deployed 1,200 feet of fiber along the poles in the right-of-way. We anticipate starting that fiber deployment in Talliesville next month. With following from Talliesville, we will proceed up to the northwest corner of the county. And so these pictures are from January, so it's we are lucked out so far in the weather. I don't see the clicker. There we go. Just wanted to highlight the town hall meeting that we had last week. It was hosted by Vice Chairman Evelyn, and we have been working for several months for that. And I was really happy that it all came together and welcome the opportunity to do more of those. I know Supervisor Lockwood, you have already indicated you would like to have one, and we'll work with you and Rodney to set that up. We've already put our teams on notice that that is coming, and we look forward to the opportunity and once again fine-tuning that message. I think any feedback that you hear that we can help us answer your questions and help answer your residents' questions, that's helpful. And anything that you need from us, I can continue to work with our teams, our construction teams, engineering, all of those people to make sure your questions are answered. Sometimes I have to push a little bit, but I will make sure that those questions are answered. So we were able to host about 100 or so residents there. They got a similar project overview that you're getting this morning, but most importantly, they were able to talk to the experts in their respective fields. We have someone from field operations to kind of tell you what does fiber to the home look like. We had someone from products and services to kind of talk about what does that mean from an affordability perspective, what are our pricing, those types of things. And of course, people want to know construction, so they were able to talk to our senior leadership team from the construction. So that format will be replicated for as many times as you need it. We will be here to support you. I can tell you, and Barrett and I have been bragging about how successful that event was and how many people attended. That's just a testament to the excitement that is here in New Kent County for this project. We share in that excitement, and we're going to make it happen, and we're very excited in doing that. I keep losing the mouse here. There we go. We're going to fix that. That's what I keep saying. So just wanted to give a high-level overview of the VATI application that went in. As part of our contract, we have been working with the county to submit applications for state grant funds to help offset some of the costs that the county obligated for this project, one of which is the Virginia Telecommunications Act initiative. And that application went in August of 2022. The original application covered the entire 12 clusters, which is about 1,700 plus homes, for an application of $5.5 million. As you'll see from the map, the green area, the lighter green area, is the area in which RDOF funding was awarded, and we were asked to rescope our VATI application to remove those locations from it. And you will see the black dots that are on the screen. I'll make this PowerPoint presentation available so you can see it a little bit better. But the black dots on there account for about 770 passings. And so the rescoped application went in earlier this month, and that application was a request of about $4.3 million. We are still waiting to hear from the state about that grant award, but I can tell you we should hear hopefully in February. And then there's also a separate grant fund that we are working with, and that's called the Line Extension Customer Assistant Grant Program. And we are also an active participant in that as well.
If we could, I do have a question
Sure.
about the RDOF grant. The RDOF grant was awarded because of the rural nature and the unserved nature of those customers, correct?
That is correct, and that is a federal grant program.
So wouldn't the RDOF grant basically be eliminated once service is available, because the whole purpose of the grant was to provide service to unserved areas? So isn't the fact that another grant holder has that grant, isn't it kind of irrelevant once you provide service in that area? Does it eliminate the RDOF nature of that grant? I know that's a legal question, sort of.
It's a legal question. I do know the RDOF funding was awarded prior to this contract being executed.
And also at no request by New Kent.
That is correct, sir.
So,
and that is part of the frustration that Rodney and I both shared with the VATI application. We were told that an MOU needed to be signed with the partner that had the RDOF funding. We said, no, we're not doing that. And, the state continued to push us on that. And finally, we just said, okay, we're going to rescope. Okay. So I won't say that it makes it irrelevant. I think that grant has been awarded. And that provider has an obligation to, and there are a lot of providers that have not fulfilled those RDOF awards.
And they have 10 years to do it.
They have a significant period of time, which is why it's frustrating, like I said, with the VATI application process, that there was no guarantee that would have been done.
Okay. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just I will close with thank you. Thank you for this opportunity for me to serve as the project liaison for this. It really is impactful. I think I said it a little bit the other night. I do live in an area that is very rural, and so when I came up here, the fog was in full force, but it was at my house as well this morning. So I really do appreciate it. I think it's going an exciting time for New Kent County. I know there's a lot of growth that has come and a lot of growth that will be coming, and I think this really sets the county on a stage to enjoy future growth. So thank you for the opportunity, and with that, I will answer any questions. And I have phone a friend here if I don't have an answer.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would just like to publicly thank you both and your team for coming to the town hall the other night. It was extremely successful. A lot of positive feedback. Obviously, you're not going to make everybody happy. I've seen some of the Facebook stuff, but I think the majority of the residents were very, very happy. I had a lot of them come up to me and say, there's no way you're going to host a town hall meeting like this if Cox isn't coming. So they felt very comfortable about the presentation and about the working relationship we're going to have. So just like to publicly thank you both and your team.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, I also want to thank you guys for being there, Barrett. And where's NECA? One question. I know you showed a map and it had the different target areas and the dates and all that stuff. But if you take someone that says lives on Carriage Road and that's not on your map as far as the designated area, is there any way someone who lives on Carriage Road can go to any kind of directory that shows when their road will be completed?
They can email me, and because I have gotten several of those questions from the town hall. I think we're working to a point where we will get, I don't know if it'll be a public-facing directory, but they will have the opportunity to know which cluster they're in or which service group they're in. And when we know that specific level of detail, they will be notified and can see it on a map, as well as we, from a information perspective, we also send out 120-day letters. So once you start getting some correspondence to the home, you can anticipate that service is coming. So I'm happy to field those questions. Like I said, I've gotten some of them already and can tell them right now where they are in the cluster process.
Okay, thank you. And then one other thing, there's a community here in New Kent County called Woodhaven Shores. And I know a couple years ago, Dominion Power decided that that was a neighborhood that they would go in and bury all the lines. Is that something you guys maybe should work in cooperation with them to make sure before you start putting stuff down?
Yeah.
work
So,
with them?
like I said, we have had a long-standing relationship with Dominion and have worked on many projects, not just here in the county, but everywhere. So, I think they said the other night the rule of thumb: if the power goes aerial, we go aerial. If the power goes underground, we go underground. And so we
Okay.
will work with them when we get to that point of undergrounding. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
I just have one other. I think it's important to let I'm gonna let my constituents know that the underserved areas, they are going to be by Q2 of 2023. You'll have those mapped out. I mean, this is just the start of it, and you're implementing the rest of the clusters, and they will be on the map. So that's what I've been telling my constituents.
Yes,
But
that is
it's
correct.
hard for them to comprehend that, but I just think that's worth saying again.
Yeah, and we will work diligently. Our teams know that. Like I said, we do have those weekly calls. I have been pushing for that type of information for you guys because I worked in government many years before I coming to Cox, so I understand the role of answering questions from the public, and I certainly understand FOIA as well. So
Yeah, I think somebody has to hear something 7 times before it sinks in.
that's
So-
okay. And sometimes we can say
We're on
everything, but if
3,
they
right?
can't,
Okay.
if you can't see it or you don't see the teams in the field, it's sometimes hard to comprehend that it actually is there. So I understand that.
Not really a question, but I think it was last Thursday night, and I can't even remember because I talked to a lot of your people the other night too. They were like on a private road, if there were 5 homes, and it might have been you, Barrett, that said that you would like to put a drop on that road, even if people didn't hook up at the time. Is that to say for the cost down the road? If somebody 3 years down the road wants to connect at that point,
Do
you've
you
got
wanna
it.
field it since we asked you?
Sure,
Thank
I'll
you.
jump in here. Yeah, absolutely. I think what we're looking at is anytime we can get down the road and go ahead and get the infrastructure in place, we want to get it in place now as part of this project. It's the most efficient, most cost-effective way to make sure that we're getting folks connected, even if they're not looking at it right now, as I think the question came up for Supervisor Page, even if they're not looking at it right now, later on down the road, they may decide, hey, you know what, my contract with whatever other provider out there is running out. I do want to go ahead and switch over. We want to make sure the infrastructure is there so that all we have to put in is what's called the drop. That's that last line that goes from the street to the actual home. We want to make sure we're ready to do that. And those drops, as Aaron had mentioned earlier, those are at no cost to the homeowner. So that's the idea. And I know we've talked about easements, and that's why it's so critical we get easements all along the route to get to those homes so that we can make it to the last home on that private road.
Thank you. Anybody else? John?
I just had one question. I think I heard in the presentation that you did at the town hall that this was one of the largest projects that Cox has initiated. Is that correct? Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
Is that because it's a fiber project, the whole project, or is it just the scope of?
I think it's just the scope and size of this project. And so at the end of this project, 11,000 plus residents will have that fiber deployment. I can tell you in Chesapeake, we just finished a VATI grant application that serviced about 250 homes. So I think it's the number of homes that we are reaching throughout this project. Virginia is really a model in broadband deployment and broadband infrastructure from the standpoint we were one of the first to have a VATI grant. And so a lot of our partners across the company are looking to us and looking to this project as model and best practices. So, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if no more questions. We again, thank you for being here again this morning. The meeting the other night was really great, and hopefully people are watching tonight and even have more questions, or this morning have more questions answered. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all. Next on the agenda, proposed fiscal year 2024-2028 capital improvement plan. Rodney Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. At the last Planning Commission meeting, they unanimously voted to forward a capital improvement plan recommendation to you based on my recommendation that I presented to the Planning Commission. I will briefly go over that. I won't go project by project, but you do have the entire CIP plan in front of you. Not only do you have the plan and what's being recommended, you have all the background data that goes along with that. And when I say background data, you have the actual request that were submitted by the departments and the justification for the ask from each department in your packet. So as you go through it, please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. The FY24 Capital Improvements Plan is a large number, probably the largest that we've dealt with since I've been administrator, and I'll talk to the reasoning why. But the CIP FY24 plan totals $16,349,146. Of that amount, approximately $5.5 million comes from our normal CIP fund cash reserves. $945,700 comes from federal and state grants. Our computer fund reserves total $41,000, and Colonial Downs revenues totals $9,799 and $884. $9 million. 700 and yes, we will be short. $9,799,884, which brings us to the total of $16,349,146. Even with that big number, that still leaves a balance of approximately $2.8 million of unallocated capital funds. And that's not including the $1 million reserve that that's included in the 16 million numbers. So really you have about $3.8 million of reserve funds that are not being proposed to be spent. This is the first year that I've proposed that we budget revenues from Colonial Downs into our capital improvements program. The board has made a directive that we've followed since receiving Colonial Downs revenues, that they would be set aside only for capital expenditures. But we've not budgeted those funds into our CIP. We've always set them aside in a reserve and set them aside for our broadband project as well. We currently have the broadband project fully funded. Therefore, we can now look to other capital needs in the county. And because our focus has been on setting aside available funds for broadband, there's a lot of capital needs that we've been pushing down the road to a time when we can afford it. I feel that time is now, and now is an opportunity to take care of some of those capital needs we've been holding off on. I don't anticipate future capital improvement plans being this large. It is my goal that we will always have at least $5 million of reserves for capital needs that are untouched. We're at 3.8 with this budget, again, and that's to take care of some of those outstanding capital needs. Some of the big projects that are being recommended for funding, and I'll start with the largest number, $7,029,000 is being recommended for the construction of a new fire station. Now, in your packet, and that's one change that we need to make, I believe it showed as being debt financed. I'm actually proposing that we cash finance that fire station. I've always operated under, I guess, the premise that we should only borrow money when we absolutely have to. And we're at a position right now where we don't have to. We can cash fund a new fire station. It will be up to the board to determine. There are 2 new fire stations requested in the CIP in consecutive years. The schedule will be up to the board to determine if you'd like to move forward with Station 2 now or a new station, Station 6, in the Bottoms Bridge area. But for next fiscal year, we're only proposing 1 station. I am also recommending $900,000 for fire apparatus replacement. We have an aging fleet of fire engines. I know recently we've purchased, well, not recently, it's been almost 10 years now. Time flies. Where we did add about 5 or 6 new apparatuses to our fleet. Yes. But we did not replace all of our fleet when we did that refinancing. We still have some older tankers that are over 20 years old, 25 years, that we're proposing to replace. We have 2 ambulances that's proposed for replacement as well at a cost of $600,000 and $290,000 for fire and EMS support apparatus. These are the apparatus that we use for hauling our equipment. I believe currently we're using, it might be a 1990s. If it is, it's an early 1990s vehicle that was donated to us by the Virginia Air National Guard when they relocated to Sandston. That's a total of $9.3 million of fire and rescue projects. For parks and recreation, I am proposing that we begin the first phase of placing lights at Pine Fort Park with the cost of $1.2 million, $1,170,000. This is an item that we have got numerous requests from the public, and I believe we're in a position to move forward with that. For general services, the big project there is I'm proposing $500,000 to identify and purchase property for the construction of a West End refuse and recycling center. What we have envisioned is something the size of our 618 facility. We know in the West End we only have the 612 facility, which is a very small facility, but even though it's one of our smallest facilities, it's the busiest facility in the county. We also have $965,000 of airport projects that's being recommended. Please keep in mind with our airport projects, 90% of the cost is funded by the FAA, 8% is funded by the Virginia Department of Aviation, and therefore the county is responsible for only 2% of the cost. And the main project there is a $650,000 project for off-airport restriction removal, which is a requirement. It's an FAA requirement that we keep the approach and takeoff areas clear of obstructions. For our Sheriff's Department, their request totaled $881,298. The big project there was a upgrade to our Harris radio system, which cost $750,000. Moving to our other requests, vehicle replacements, I am proposing $612,000 of vehicle replacements, the lion's share of that being the Sheriff's Office vehicles, totaling $562,000. That's 7 vehicles. 7 vehicles. The schools have presented a budget request of $1.9 million. I won't go through every single request because you have them in front of you, but the largest items was $685,000 for a school bus replacement. That's the replacement of 6 school buses. Again, we keep those buses. They're on a 15-year replacement schedule, which is what's recommended by the Virginia Department of Education. There is a significant area of the roof at the high school facility that is in need of replacement. $450,000 has been requested for that. The schools would like to begin a district-wide lighting upgrade project for inside their facilities at a cost of $425,000. I can tell you we went through that process several years ago with our county facilities, and we saw an immediate reduction in our costs for power. So I do think it is a project worth moving forward with. And then they have a $143,000 request for school vehicles. Please keep in mind that since our sheriff's department has moved to SUV vehicles, they can no longer, at the current moment, be transferred to the schools. It is a state requirement that they can't transport students in SUVs. And we're still looking into that because we believe that that's a very outdated requirement that needs to be looked at again.
What about, I saw something in the paper that their schools are looking at doing a big renovation to the elementary school. I don't see that.
No, they've not requested any money in their FY24 CIP for that. But at the end of last fiscal year, you may recall they had a pretty large transfer of end-of-the-year funds of about $1.6 million. They're using a portion of that money to fund architectural and design work for the renovation of the New Kent Elementary School. And they won't have a price until that work is completed. So I imagine once they complete the design and engineering, then they'll come to you with a request for funding. No, I think they understand it will have to be the FY25 budget.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yeah, well, it would have to be the FY25 budget because, unless the board would be willing to consider some type of borrowing mid-year. I've not had those conversations with the schools to know what their actual plan is.
So, Mr. Hathaway, I have a question. Didn't we talk about doing lighting at the schools in different phases of different schools? Didn't we do that, or was it just the LED lights in the classrooms? Or
we've done that for county administration facilities. We've done that for our buildings. Mm-hmm. They've not done that. Now, as far as a phasing project for the schools, they have a phasing project ongoing right now to replace their HVAC systems. Well, let me take that back. Because the middle school, they did do some upgrades to lighting in the middle school, but that's the only school that they've done some lighting upgrades to.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. And moving to our public utilities CIP, and we always keep that separate from our operating budget because there's no county general fund dollars or tax dollars that goes into the operation of our utility system or capital improvement plans for utilities. These are solely supported on user fees and connection fees. They have submitted a CIP budget totaling $4.5 million. The big project for them is upgrades to the colonies water system, totaling $1.2 million. They also have a project to connect the Bottoms Bridge water system to the Quinton water system, basically running the line down New Kent Highway and tying into the Food Lion facility at Airport Road. That project is $1 million, which will give us one large water system from Bottoms Bridge to Kentland, which should reduce our operating costs and increase efficiencies as far as water flows. And it allows us to eliminate some of the infrastructure that we have as far as water pumps and towers and tanks. Yes.
That water, that's just water, correct?
It's just water.
From Quentin to there? No? Okay.
And I think that's what a lot of people are asking about. That those are the survey flags on 249,
Yes.
correct? So make that is the interconnectivity.
Supposed to be completed today. So we'll be following up and wherever they're in the lawn, we'll get the flags out of there.
So that's the interconnectivity of the water line, just so people know publicly, because I've been getting a lot of questions about that.
We also have $1.5 million requested for a grinder at the Tallysville pump station. We've had some issues with items that are not supposed to be in our utility system getting into our utility system and creating issues. And we believe that some of that is coming from some of the businesses along Route 106. We're also requesting $450,000 for site planning for a new utilities operation center. We're looking at the same property where our utilities department is currently located, but they have outgrown that facility, and there's enough room to expand that facility as well. This is a short overview of our capital improvements plan for FY24. Again, no action is needed today. As we usually do, we adopt the CIP with the adoption of our budget, which we're planning to come before you. It looks like it's going to be at your March meeting for a presentation on the budget. With plans to actually conduct the public hearing at your April meeting. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Evelyn?
I know as a board, at all of our retreats over the last 4 or 5 years, space is what we keep hearing, and
Yes.
with the county growing and the needs. Is there any money set aside, I assume it's not, in the capital project for the piece of property we bought beside Watkins School to do some preliminary engineering studies for future needs and growth of the county?
Well, there is a request that I plan to bring to you later this fiscal year, but it's not for the piece beside Watkins. But I can look at that. And the only reason it's not is I just feel, being a longtime resident of the county, this is our county seat. And any expansion of office space, I would really like to see it in this area. So I am getting some preliminary costs right now, and what I plan to bring back to you is a proposal for us to consult with an architect that will develop a needs analysis and a space plan. He'll build a program for what a new administration building would look like, how many offices we need, what the square footage should be, which will give us an idea of cost as we move forward for planning for a new administration facility. What that architect will do is they will meet with every single department, look at their current needs, look at the growth of the county, and then do some projections on future needs as well, keeping in mind that any new facility hopefully will last us for the next 30, 40, 50 years. So that is forthcoming, but I can look at the Watkins property.
No, as long as you have a plan.
Okay.
Any other questions before we move on? All right. Next item, annual contract for professional engineering services. Mr. Hathaway.
Yes. Back in December, I presented to you 7 contracts for professional engineering services. This is the last contract from Bowman and Associates that requires approval from the board. I didn't have their fee information at the time the others were presented to you. I've since received that, and I'm recommending that we move forward with an annual contract with Bowman Services.
Any questions on the contract?
If there are no questions, Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize the county administrator to execute the proposed contract for professional engineering services in a form approved by the county attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Lockwood. Ms. Watkins, would you poll the members?
Mr. Evelyn?
Aye.
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
And Mr. Tiller?
Aye. Moving on. Item number 4. RRTPO, CVTA, and Plan RVA appointments. Mr. Hathaway, yet again.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, we have a new planning director, Mrs. Amy Inman, who's here before you, and we're excited to have her on staff. I am recommending that Amy be appointed as the New Kent representative to the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organizational Technical Advisory Committee. That's a lot of words. And that she also be recommended to the Central Virginia Transportation Authority Technical Advisory Committee. Also, since your last meeting, Amy Pearson was appointed by the Planning Commission to be the Planning Commission representative to the Plan RVA Regional Planning District Commission, and that requires your approval as well.
I don't have a problem with any of those.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms.
I have
Page.
a motion.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I move to appoint Supervisor John Lockwood, a New Kent alternate representative to the Central Virginia Transportation Authority to serve a one-year term beginning January 1st, 2023, ending December 31st, 2023. I also move to appoint Amy Inman as New Kent's representative to the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization Technical Advisory Committee. I move to approve Amy Inman as New Kent's representative to the Central Virginia Transportation Authority Technical Advisory Committee. And last but not least, I move to appoint Amy Pearson to New Kent's Planning Commission representative to Plan RVA Regional Planning District Commission to serve a one-year term beginning January 1st, 2023, and December 31st, 2023. Ms. Pearson's term did expire December 31st, 2022, and the Planning Commission did represent her to be reappointed. Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Ms. Watkins, would you poll the members, please?
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Evelyn?
Aye.
And Mr. Tiller?
Aye. That's all that's on our agenda other than other business. Anybody have any other business?
I
Sure.
do, and I would ask Chief Opet and Mr. Hobbs to come forward for a brief update on Station 4. As you know, we've been making very good progress on Station 4, and we're excited to announce that we have scheduled a groundbreaking ceremony for February 10th at 10 a.m. on site of the future location of Station 4. So things are progressing well. We wanted to give you an update on the final contract price. As you know, with design build projects, that original proposal is pretty much a concept. And that's the reason we budget a fairly large contingency for design build projects. Once we select a contractor, then a negotiation begins, and more engineering and site work is done on the site to fine tune that original cost that's submitted in the bid proposal. We have gone through that process with numerous meetings with the contractor's team of engineers, and we feel comfortable with the final price that we are at. There is an additional, from their proposal, an additional $335,738 for the project. Now, our contingency for the project was $665, so we're well within our contingency. We still have another $329,000 remaining in contingency, which we think will be more than sufficient for the remainder of this project. We have a breakdown of that $335,000, so you have that. A big cost was dormers being added to the building, which I believe that was important. We saw renderings of what that building looked like without the dormers. In fact, there's a nearby locality that's building pretty much the exact building without the dormers, and it looks like a metal building. The dormers, they do add to the aesthetics of the building and character of the Lenexa area. That's why I felt it was important to move forward with, because this is a building we're going to be looking at hopefully for the next 50 years. Also, since we've approved the contract, we've been negotiating with the utility companies. I feel like we're still negotiating with utility companies, but that's been a process in itself. There are additional costs to bury the existing utility lines there. We're still working with Verizon in hopes that we can relocate some of that utility. Right now, we're kind of building around it, so there will be a big Verizon box in front of our building. But we're still in the process of talking to Verizon. Hopefully, we will be able to get that removed in the future, but there will be an additional cost to that, I'm sure. And then, there were other odds and ends to the building that were added. Another big item was the surety bond and insurance requirements. It's common practice that the owner pays for those items. But I think it's money well spent, just in case we run into any issues. We are protected there. So that's a significant cost, but one that's well needed, much needed.
Well, the other one big ticket item I see on here is almost $18,000 for another bathroom.
Yes.
If it's we haven't even started the building yet. I just can't figure why it would cost $18,000 to add another bathroom.
And that's not, I'm sorry, good morning. And that's not totally finalized. We actually have a couple of items I'm still negotiating with the contractor on, and I've asked for additional backup. The bathroom was added. No additional square footage was added. However, you have all the underground plumbing, the in-wall plumbing, the shower pan, the toilet, the vanities, vent piping, finishes, everything else that goes with that. Whereas if it was a storage closet or some unfinished space, you're not going to have any of those finishes. So finishes alone are several $1,000s, but the rough-in for that, the shower, the toilet, the sink, and all the associated plumbing, electrical, exhaust fan, it all adds up. But I have asked for backup on that. We're not just going to blindly sign a change order for this.
All right.
And Mr. Tiller, that came out of the requirement of the code for access and functional needs. on that first floor. So basically, this bathroom would serve as that access and functional needs bathroom in that facility if needed.
And I imagine this has got to be a handicap bathroom in a fire station?
Yes, sir.
Again. I don't-
Mr. Chairman. The like we found out on Fire Station 5, site work can be, that could be very expensive, and working on our contingencies. Have you done any site work yet? Analytical and testing on the soils and see what you think we have out there, because
we've had
that's
preliminary geotech done,
uh-huh.
Which appeared to be fine. Now, we do know that this was an old motel site. There is the potential for an old propane tank or gas tank or septic tank or something that's unforeseen. But for right now, we feel like the soils were adequate. Of course, we could hit anything at any time.
I know.
As you know, what's below the ground is still hidden until we get it cleared off and really establish the building pad and have our final geotechs done. We really won't know that.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Evelyn, too, at our last site, we met for an environmental site, and I know the contractor who was actually going to be pushing the dirt, actually the joke was already made that we've already accounted in the budget for truckloads of dirt coming out of Charles City. Sturgeon Point. Yeah, because of that compact into that fill. So they've already accounted for important. So there shouldn't be any surprises that right now this is the biggest. We done it a little different from Station 5. We got everything on the front end coming to you before anything happens. But again, the only surprise left, big ticket, could be if we do hit something. But they've already have in their budget imported fill out of the same place there.
Any other questions for the chief? All right. Go ahead.
If you have any questions about any of these line items, we'd be happy to expand on them.
Okay, thank you.
And no action is required at this point. Once the numbers are finalized, which hopefully there is a reduction, you will see a change order come before you at one of your future meetings.
Any other?
Mr. Tiller, if
Yes.
I may.
No.
Mr. Hathaway did bring it up here at the beginning. Just to let you all know and the community know that we've passed all the permit inspections. We had our on-site environmental meeting last week, and we got the green light to kind of start clearing some ground. So as of probably today, you'll see some groundwork happening out there in preparation for groundbreaking ceremony, which we're happy to announce is Friday, February 10th at 10 a.m. There on the site. So we welcome everyone to come partake in that, and we hope to see you all soon. And I know it's pretty exciting for the folks in the colonies, and it's been a long time coming for those folks. So we're excited.
Thank you, Chief.
See you on the 10th.
Yeah. If there's no other business, I think Mr. Evelyn has something to say.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I move to go in closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-37118.5 of the Code of Virginia for discussion concerning potential incentives for protective businesses where no previous announcement has been made of the business interest in locating its facilities in the county. I also move to go in closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A.1 of the Code of Virginia for discussion and consideration of candidates for appointment involving the county attorney position. Also move to go in closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A.3 of the Code of Virginia for discussion and consideration of the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the county involving a vacant well lot in Bottoms Bridge and a vacant lot in Lenexa.
Thank you, Mr. Evelyn. Ms. Watkins, would you poll the members, please?
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Evelyn?
Aye.
Ms. Page? And Mr. Tiller?
Aye. And there's nothing else on our agenda, so anybody that works here for New Kent County, y'all can go back to work.